What's going on YouTube? This is your boy Everyday Tech with Stan JB, and today I'm not really doing a review, but I did want to have a quick conversation, possibly a rant, about the Galaxy S21 series that was just announced by Samsung. Honestly, I'm not really going against them, but more or less some of the perceptions people have claiming that this phone may be a step back. And I'm here to talk about why a lot of these changes are either more of a positive thing or not a problem at all. So let's get to it. All right, now first thing first, guys, want to make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. That way you guys know when I drop a video. I'm going to try to be more consistent, so that way you can see my wonderful, beautiful face more often. Let's talk about the Galaxy S21, the base model. This has kind of been my favorite version, primarily for the more compact size. Now, before I start talking about the complaints everybody else have, I'm going to talk about the complaint I have. I wish Samsung would take a Apple route and, despite giving us a smaller device, keep the same internals from their bigger, better versions. They got a little closer this year. The S21 and S21 Ultra aren't too different, I don't believe. On paper, they look almost identical minus the build. I still think, the Galaxy S21 could have had that same build and been pretty cheap. But speaking on the build, that's probably complaint numero uno for most people. A lot of people hear that this phone now has a plastic back. A lot of people are okay with it, but a lot of people are losing their minds. Why? Why would Samsung go backwards to a cheaper, less expensive, less premium build? First of all, the only reason why a lot of people use glass back is, one, it looks and feels premium. The glass back phones came around when shiny was the thing. You wanted your phone to have that nice glossy back. Well, into 2020, 2021, we don't really care about a shiny back. In fact, matte finish has been coming around, and now people realize that we don't like fingerprints, we don't like smudges, we don't like seeing our grubby little grease stains from our hands on our phone. So a lot of companies have been going to this matte finish. Samsung has been doing their Glastic, a name I absolutely hate, but a product I actually kind of like. You see, Glastic gets you that nice polished look and feel with the matte finish. It doesn't have that cold touch or the weight to it, but everything else feels pretty premium, even though it is basically plastic. The biggest benefit of a plastic back that I think people are forgetting is if you drop your phone, you don't have to worry about the front and the back shattering. You see, glass has this one little problem, this one little issue. It breaks pretty easily too. Who knew? Glass, yeah, whatever. Plastic, not so much. In fact, plastic, it's able to bend more, which means when it does get hit, when it does drop, rather than snap, twist, crack, or scratch, it's going to kind of bend with the impact a little bit more. Now, you can only abuse plastic so much before it does break, but it is going to live longer than a glass back phone. Especially with how good they're making these phones look, you kind of want to show it off without a case. Another good thing about the plastic is you still get the wireless charge capabilities. Now, my favorite build for a phone has always been a more metallic build. I love aluminum phones, the cold hard steel, knowing that it's durable. It does get scratched more, but it doesn't shatter like glass does. You can't do wireless charge with an aluminum or metal body, but you can do it with glass and plastic. So despite the fact that it doesn't seem as premium, it's going to actually protect your phone a little better. You're not going to be in a rush to get a case because the front and back is in glass. One's going to be glass, one's going to be plastic. I think the whole plastic issue is overblown. Another issue people have been complaining about has been the resolution. You see, Samsung went from a Quad HD display down to a 1080p display. Now, it's not 1080p 1920, it's 1080p 2400, so it still is a very good 1080p display. And people, once again, are freaking out. Yes, I love having a screen that looks beautiful, but let's face it, most people coming from S20, S20 Ultra, they pretty much drop down to 1080p to get that high refresh rate. And you know what? 90% of those people didn't notice a difference. I've always felt 4K screens on a phone is ridiculous. For something that's, what, 7 inches at the most, I actually care more about HDR than I do 4K. You see, HDR works on a pixel-to-pixel level to enhance and brighten the image and make it look crisper and cleaner, whereas the resolution of 4K, yes, it's packing more pixels into the image, which is why you get that sharp look. Now, obviously, when you combine them, it's probably the best screen you can get. But if I had to pick and choose, I will choose HDR 1080p over 4K, mainly because, yes, you still get a beautiful picture. HDR is going to make it look even better, but the added battery life. 4K screens have notoriously been battery drainers. 1080p screens have been pretty solid. And I think that's something we all forgot because we got obsessed with the high numbers, seeing the biggest numbers on phones. Now instead of 1080p, it's 1440, it's 4K, it's all this, it's all that. And we cared more about having those numbers than even noticing the difference between one or the other. And I think that was a good idea on Samsung to drop their screens down to 1080p. That way they can actually save money, because remember, you are saving $200 on every one of these phones compared to last year. I think that's a pretty easy trade-off. Hope you do too. Surprisingly, I'm surprised and actually happy that people weren't complaining too much about this, is the amount of RAM. You see, now the base model kind of goes from 8 to 12 gigs of RAM. I'm okay with this because this is going to be the shortest part. Phones don't need like 12 gigs of RAM. It's nice to have, but you don't need it. There is no reason why your Note should have more RAM than the average person's desktop. If you believe you need more than 8 gigs of RAM, you're ridiculous, and that's about all I got to say about that. 6 to 8 gigs of RAM is more than enough for an Android. 8 gigs is definitely where I would like to be at. I think that's probably the best place right now to lower cost, but still get the performance people want. So I think most people notice that too. As I said, not a lot of people have been complaining about the RAM. So that's good. That's good. Anyone who complains about it, yeah, we're not going to listen to them. Now, probably one thing I've seen the most has been Samsung getting rid of the SD card. And I gotta say, I'm kind of there with you. I don't see a reason to remove it. That's a lie. I know the reason. But I feel like they could have gone a little bit longer without removing it. There was no rush to remove the SD card. That's what I feel like. But as somebody who jumped on the Note 5 when they first removed the SD card, I learned quickly that it's not a big deal. We don't use as much as we think. And even more so today, everything is backed up to some sort of cloud storage. You have a Samsung phone, chances are you have Microsoft OneDrive, which is going to give you a lot of backed up storage. It starts at 128 gigs too, which is a healthy amount of storage for a device. Pictures are going to take up barely a part of that unless you're ridiculous. It's going to be the videos and everything. That's why I kind of have an issue with it. If you are told an 8K video, you're going to want to have a way to unload that off of your device without just taking up all your storage. And I feel that's why Samsung shouldn't have jumped the gun on removing the SD card. But it was going to have to happen sooner or later. You also have to remember this. Samsung produces their own RAM sticks. On laptops, on their phones, on everything. Most of your computers have a Samsung RAM stick in it anyway. I feel like I'm saying that wrong, but don't mind me, it's early. So, what I'm getting at is having the RAM pulled directly from Samsung's device is actually going to be a little more faster and more efficient than having to skip and read to the SD card. That's kind of the main reason they've been doing it. This happened back when Android was still a little bit of a juvenile operating system and had trouble reading and writing and all that. They kind of skipped over the SD cards as a way to kind of help everything run faster. Samsung obviously held back because they're Samsung, and Samsung didn't realize they were Android until maybe a year ago. But that's kind of why. It's just better to read off of your device's storage rather than an external storage. I would have preferred them to keep that SD card in there, but I don't think in practice it's going to bug us as much as we think. I think, once again, more people are going to realize they don't use as much storage as they think. I have sold phones for like 8 years. I've sold laptops and computers for like 5 years. People overestimate how much storage they need all the time. If you knew how many customers I had wanted to get the phone with the 256 and the 512, but then when I look in their phone, I'm like, you're using 32 gigs. 9 times out of 10, that's the situation. If you look at how much storage is on your SD card compared to your phone, you're probably not close to 128 gigs. And if you are, it's all right. For a little bit of money, I think it's like $50, you can jump up to 256 and I think even 512. That's my only concern. That's the only complaint I really have with the S21 is they probably removed the SD card too early. Other than that, I think a lot of these complaints are just people not liking the fact that Samsung is changing. Phones are changing. And Samsung, to my enjoyment, actually seems to avoid playing the numbers games this year. I think the last 2 phones, they just focused on having the biggest numbers and expected that to be the reason why they sell. And then they didn't really hit their sales goals, or at least it didn't sell as fast as they liked it to. They realized people don't care as much as you would think. Me and you care because you're watching a tech video and I'm shooting a tech video. We're a certain group of people. The average consumer doesn't care about 100 billion megapixels in your camera or 512 gigs of RAM or whatever. They just want a phone that works. They want it to be smooth. They want it to be easy. They want it to be convenient. And you know what else? They probably want to pay $200 less. So my conclusion is that Samsung actually went down on some very smart things that in reality we aren't going to notice once we get our hands on these phones. But in doing so, they saved us, the consumers, about $200. And I am very excited to get my hands on them. I got to play with them a little bit. I'm going to see if I can actually buy one. I'm broke, but I really want to get the S21, that little guy. It's going to be nice. Tell me, guys, what you think. What are you excited for? What are you worried about? Do you think removing the SD card is going to be a make it or break it for you? Is the 8 gigs of RAM too little for you? I'm curious to know what you guys feel. But anyway, just want to do a quick video and thank you guys for joining. Peace.